everyone, it's Sevi, and Columbina is finally out in version Genshin Luna 4. Columbina, our new Hydro Catalyst user that is focused on lunar reactions. Now, Columbina does bring your lunar reaction damage to a new level, but there's a catch, and that catch is what I want to discuss in this video, along with a baseline understanding of how she works so you can also learn how to play her in case you do get her after watching this video. Now, I did record this video on the CE server, so there might be some changes between the CE server and official release. Usually there aren't though. And I must disclose that this video is sponsored, but if you know me, that doesn't get in the way of my very honest thoughts, which I will be sharing at the end of the video. So let's just get into it. As usual, when it comes to worth pulling or pull value videos, I do have to say that, you know, whether it's worth it for you or not, of course, depends on different criteria. I always tell people to pull the characters that they want to pull. She is going to be worth pulling if you've wanted her for so long, like myself. If you've been waiting for her ever since that infamous Fatui teaser animation came out, honestly, at that point, just pull her. Like, for me, as soon as I saw the Nod Krai previews and saw that Columbina was going to be a main character in the Archon quest, I was like, yeah, I will be saving for her. I'm going to pull Flynn's and then I'm going to wait for Columbina to come out. So I'm not going to stop you if it's a pull of the heart. But if it's a pull of the brain, if you're trying to figure out what value she brings to your teams, to your accounts, then that's going to be the main discussion in this video. So let's start with how Columbina actually works. And this is going to be an overview of her kit. You might have seen other videos about it, but I kind of want to simplify and consolidate it here. So, Columbina revolves around lunar reactions. She buffs the lunar reactions that your team causes or deals or triggers, and she also deals her own lunar reaction damage. So first, let's take a look at how she buffs lunar reactions. Starting with her Moon Sign Benediction passive, and this is similar to a lot of other Nod Krai units or Nod Krai supports. For example, Innefa, very similar to how Innefa's Moon Sign Benediction works, wherein Innefa buffs Lunar Charge, Llama she buffs Lunar Bloom. For Columbina, she buffs Lunar Charge, Lunar Bloom, and Lunar Crystallized, all based on her max HP. And in order to max out that buff, she needs 35,000 max HP, and that's going to give a 7% lunar reaction damage buff. To all three lunar reactions, by the way. Not just one, not just two, but all three. And if you want a video on Lunar Crystallized, a little breakdown of it, then I have one. I'll link it down in the description. So next, her Burst is another way that she buffs lunar reaction damage from the team. Her Burst provides a 40% lunar reaction damage buff at talent level 10. And it has a 20-second duration and 15-second cooldown, so if you can burst every rotation, it's very easy to keep that effect up all the time, and that's a pretty noticeable buff. And then she also has this passive that comes with her burst. It's called the Law of the New Moon. When her burst domain is up, she has different effects based on the lunar reaction damage being dealt. So basically, she gives Lunar Charged and Lunar Crystallized a 33% chance of doing another hit. In Lunar Charged case, it's from the Thundercloud. In Lunar Crystallized case, it's from the Geo Turret Moondrift thing. But the way that she affects Lunar Bloom is a little bit different. For Lunar Bloom, she gives the party Moonridge Dews, which are like additional verdant dews, but they're verdant dews that only Columbina can make. So whenever Lunar Bloom is triggered, you get Verdant Dews, and you also get Moonridge Dews when Columbina has her domain up and her passive is working. So she can gain 3 Moonridge Dews every 18 seconds. Now those Moonridge Dews that are essentially additional Verdant Dews are particularly good for Nefer and Llama teams because both of them actually consume Verdant Dews. Llama consumes Verdant Dews for her Pale Hymn stacks, which are used to buff the team's Bloom and Lunar Bloom damage with, and then Nefer consumes them for her charged attacks. And previously, without Columbina, when you could only generate or hold 3 Verdant Dew at a time, you'd basically have to choose one over the other. Either Llama consumes them and gives you your Pale Hymn stacks, but then Nefer isn't left with anything to like consume for her charge attacks, so you'd usually end up prioritizing Nefer. But now that's not the case since you have a way of generating and holding more Verdant Dews at a time. Next, let's see how she deals her own lunar reaction damage or uses lunar reaction damage to buff herself. So first of all, interestingly, her charged attack actually turns into 3 instances of Lunar Bloom damage if you have at least 1 Verdant Dew. And then there's her skill, it creates what they call a gravity ripple. So first it deals AoE hydro damage following your character, and it doesn't have an ICD actually, so it applies hydro with every hit, making her a very good AoE hydro applicator. And the AoE of her hydro application is actually bigger when you get Ascendant Gleam for your team. And then when your team deals lunar reaction damage or triggers lunar reactions, Columbina will accumulate gravity. So she'll accumulate 20 gravity every 2 seconds if you're continuously doing lunar reactions or lunar damage, and at 60 gravity she'll trigger gravity interference, which deals damage in the form of the lunar reaction that helped her accumulate the most gravity. I know, it's a mouthful, but basically, for example, if you're running a team that primarily triggers lunar charge, then those will accumulate gravity, and her gravity interference will come in the form of lunar charge damage. And honestly, you don't have to think that hard about it. It's just something that happens when she has her skill up and your team is triggering lunar reactions and so on. And for Columbina, that damage is going to scale on her max HP. Now, it might look a bit like the lunar bloom damage is low at the moment, but she actually deals 5 instances of it, so just remember that. And her gravity ripple, or her skill, has 25-second duration and a 17-second cooldown, so again, it's easy to get 100% uptime on that. In addition, she has a passive where triggering gravity interference gives her 5% crit rate for 10 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. So she gets a maximum of 15% crit rate from that passive. And if you look at the new artifact set, which she can definitely use, the 4-piece set gives 20% lunar reaction damage bonus when the equipping character is off-field, and in Ascendant Gleam, you get additional 40%. So full, that's 60% lunar bonus, which is crazy. So that applies to her own lunar reaction damage, and it'll buff those numbers a lot. So I know it sounds like Columbina does a lot, but honestly, playing her is very simple. Playing her in the more or less traditional sense of like keeping her off field and just more as a support for your on-field DPS, all you have to do is skill burst her. She is an EQ bot. Sometimes she's just an E-bot. Sometimes you don't even need her burst. So that being said, she does all this more or less passively and is able to achieve the full potential of her kit if you are in Ascendant Gleam and you're continuously triggering lunar reactions or dealing lunar reaction damage. So a lot of it just happens behind the scenes with her kit. You don't even have to worry about it. And there are ways to play her on field, which I'm not going to go into that much, but since her charge attacks do lunar bloom damage, given the right team, those can pretty much do a lot of damage. Anyway, before I forget, Columbina has an exploration talent of if your character dies in Nod Krai while you're exploring, Columbina will revive that character. Yeah, C6 Barbara power creep, I know. This one has a 100-second cooldown though, and the HP that Columbina gives to your revived character is going to be based on her friendship level, which is kind of funny. Anyway, let's move on to the implications of that entire rundown, which is just remember that Columbina, she's an HP scaling character, but you also want to build crit on her because when she deals lunar damage, remember that that can crit, and that is going to be based on her crit stats, sometimes based on her crit stats and other party members' crit stats, but since lunar damage can crit, you definitely want to build crit on Columbina. And her signature weapon is actually a crit damage weapon, which is very indicative of how the game wants you to build her. And also remember that EM is good for lunar reaction damage, so those stats are very useful. And in a lot of cases, in a lot of teams, you are going to want to burst every rotation, so pay attention to her ER stat as well. And real quick, just for reference, I want to go through the constellations, which heavily revolve around her off-field support playstyle and how she supports lunar reactions, and they also heavily rely on Ascendant Gleam. So with C1, she triggers gravity interference right as she uses her skill, and it also makes her skill provide extra effects based on the lunar reactions that gave the most gravity. Then C2 makes gravity accumulate faster, and with gravity interference, she gets a big HP buff and then gives even more buffs to the party's active character based on the primary lunar reaction for her gravity interference. Like, you're seeing a pattern here, right? C3 increases her skill level, C4 is an energy constellation that also increases her gravity interference damage, C5 increases her burst level, and then C6 makes her lunar domain give extra crit damage to your character's elemental damage based on the lunar reactions triggered. Also, in addition, each of her constellations gives an elevated multiplier, which is basically an extra buffing multiplier for lunar reactions. And At C6, once you add all of them up, it reaches 30% elevated multiplier, which is a lot. So those are her constellations. Honestly, just super simple, pretty automatic, and nothing that changes her playstyle all that much, actually, surprisingly. Now for the real question, and I know that this is the question that most of you are probably wondering. Is Columbina an upgrade to your Nod Krai teams, to your lunar teams? And first of all, an upgrade in comparison to who? Now, the direct comparison that comes to mind would be Aino. Aino is the free 4-star Nod Krai Hydro character, and your default Hydro unit if you need to fulfill Ascendant Gleam. As someone who has Flins but no Inefa on my main account, I've basically had to rely on Aino this whole time to give me my Ascendant Gleam. And, you know, all things considered, like, Aino does the job. She does the job of the Hydro application, she does the job of being a Nod Krai character, but past that, she doesn't do all that much, right? Now, Columbina is definitely an upgrade over Aino. Even just in the Hydro application alone, since Columbina gives an AoE Hydro app that follows you around instead of just being stationary, even just that quality of life alone, it's pretty important. Plus, Columbina deals really good lunar reaction damage by herself. She actually deals damage, and she has versatile buffs depending on which lunar reaction team you're playing. Aino deals negligible damage. So in those aspects, of course, Columbina is going to be an upgrade. If you're just looking for an upgrade from Aino, I personally am, then Columbina already has a lot of value. She's going to be worth it. But if we're comparing Columbina's upgrade value over other Nod Krai 5 stars, then that's where it gets a bit more interesting. Alright, so when it comes to Columbina and comparing with other Nod Krai supports, let's put this in the context of Flynn's Lunar Charge team and Nefer's Lunar Bloom team, since those are the main team archetypes that Nod Krai has been giving us so far. So for Flynn's, his primary 5-star support to look out for is Inefa. And Flynn's teams get a massive bump in damage and comfort with Inefa on the team. I mean, she provides a lot. She provides sustain, sub-DPS, buffing, and so on. And the general advice is that you get Inefa if you're dedicated to Flynn's. Well, what about Columbina? Does she now become a bigger asset to Flynn's than Inefa now that Columbina's out? Not really, as of now. And it's honestly still going to be a better idea to prioritize Inefa if you don't have her yet, since she just does so much for his team. But if you already have Inefa, Columbina can improve the team much more, because now she's buffing Inefa's lunar charge damage and vice versa, and hers and Inefa's buffs just work really well together for Flynn's as well. And the thing is, it's a similar situation for Nefer and Lauma. If you have Nefer but not Lauma, getting Lauma is still going to be a higher priority for the team than getting Columbina. I mean, Lauma's Pale Hymn stacks for increasing Bloom and Lunar Bloom damage go insane for the team damage, along with the other support features she has, of course. And Nefer with Columbina but no Lauma still isn't as good as Nefer with Lauma and no Columbina. So if you already have Lauma for your Nefer, then Columbina will just make your team insane. And what's funny is that these Inefa Columbina and Lauma Columbina team cores are actually so effective that you can plug a lot of other characters in the remaining 2 slots and the team will still do well. Which means that even outside of the context of Flynn's and Nefer, Inefa and Lauma are still pretty integral in unlocking more of Columbina's potential. It's like maybe Inefa and Lauma are the premium Lunar Charged and Lunar Bloom units all along, just not in terms of dealing the most personal damage, if that makes sense. If you're not playing Genshin Impact yet, by the way, let me tell you a bit of what's to come. Genshin Impact is an open world action RPG game available on multiple platforms where you can explore Teyvat as you search the world for your sibling, plus unravel this world's mysteries while wielding mysterious elemental powers to defeat those big enemies. Genshin Impact Luna 4, which is the current update, is starting on January 14 and includes new characters Columbina, Zibai, and Iluga, plus new quests, as well as massive rewards for a free Leo 4-star character of your choice and 20 free pulls, and that's not all. But that right there is awesome for anyone just starting out. More than that is the Lantern Rite celebration just in time for the Lunar New Year, the highly anticipated continuation of this region's Archon quest, an explorable new area within Nod Krai, and so much more with events, rewards, outfits, and all that good stuff. After last version's main quest cliffhanger, I'm so excited to finally find out what happens next. And the headline defining character of the version, Columbina, is someone I've been so excited to finally get on my account and play. So if you like what you see, download Genshin Impact with my link in the description and pinned comment, redeem that code for extra rewards, and good luck on your journey. Well, that previous part had a bunch of my personal opinions in it, but let me know in the comments what you think about Columbina's situation, if she's going to be valuable for your account, or if you're pulling her, whether a pull of the heart or a pull of the mind. I would love to know down in the comments. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to my channel for more content, and I will see you soon. Take care!